Shalom, Israel, shalom, shalom. Brother Naquam, watchman for Israel, coming back at you with these precepts and another cold cut, giving, of course, all honor and all glory to Yahweh. By Shema Mashiach, like Yabushai, double honor to the elect elders of the house of David that's been in this truth for decades and decades, patiently waiting for the second coming of Mashiach, like Yabushai. A hearty, mighty shalom to all of the mighty men of the Most High God who are out there in the highways and byways, pushing this truth, magnifying the ministry, and presenting their body as a living sacrifice. Shalom, shalom. Shalom to all of the men that may not be out there on the highways and byways as of yet, but they're working on it. They're getting built up in the spirit. They're praying. They're fasting. They're studying. They're being diligent and abounding in the work of the Lord. Shalom, shalom. Shalom to all of the aquath out there, the sincere sisters out there. So like you're holding it down in the households, reverencing their husbands, being submissive and diligent, and move it in the spirit of our righteous foremother. Shalom, shalom. And shalom to everybody tuning in live down in Israel, from Egypt to Israel, Justin Washington, Kyoko Banyamyan, Araya Israel, Shalom King, Sean Troy, Mina Israel, Ancients Knew Why Don't We, Michelle Y, Malak Israel, Salome Williams, Nahum Yasha Allah, DP, Divash the Branch, Divinely Fashioned, Israel, Richard Perez, and everybody else tuning in and that will tune in, Lord willing. Your topic of this cold cut is don't be like these men, Q&A, and Feast of Unleavened Bread, right? Don't be like these men. I kind of went into this in time past, and particular individuals that we read about who are set up as an example, right? You have men that are set up strictly as an example, rather it's for righteousness or rather it's for wickedness, right? And it's all set up that we may learn how to move and behave and its truth and through the spirit and power of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. Right? Let's go to the book of 1 Corinthians. Right? Let's go to 1 Corinthians first and foremost. Since we're in the spirit, and again, happy Feast of Unleavened Bread to Israel, man. Right? Lord willing, everyone had a mighty Passover. You're in this Feast of Unleavened Bread, and you're in the spirit and power of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. Right? Now, this is 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and 1. See that? Avoid Israel's mistakes, right? They got that one right. Moreover, brethren, I would not that ye, let me make sure this is showing. Okay, Con. Moreover, brethren, I would not that ye should be ignorant, how that all our fathers were under the cloud and all passed through the sea. So Paul is speaking to the church of Corinth. Remember, Corinth is in Greece. You had Israelites that lived in Greece. They lived in Sparta, Athens, Corinth, Thessalonica, Macedonia, all these different regions out there in what they call the Mediterranean. And he's telling them that their forefathers, they walked with Moses through the Red Sea, and they were under the cloud, meaning under the chariot. There was a large chariot out there that led Israel through the wilderness. And were all baptized unto Moses in the cloud and in the sea. Meaning, when it says baptized, it doesn't mean they were immersed underwater, right? The word baptized, it doesn't always mean put underwater. You can be baptized through the word, right? You can be baptized by your body being put in the ground spiritually and being raised again as a new creature or a new man in Yahushua, right? You can be baptized as in consecrated unto Moses, meaning our forefathers transitioned from captivity in Egypt unto the law, statutes, and commandments and the covenant of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua that was set up by using Moses. All right, so Moses was used as a mediator to give Israel the law, statutes, and the commandments. That's what it's saying. They were all baptized unto Moses, right? When you go into this word first, baptized, it's baptizo, right? Which means immersed. Let's see if we can play this. To dip repeatedly, to immerse, to submerge, a vessel sunk, to cleanse by dipping or submerging, to wash, to make clean with water, to wash oneself, to bathe. So we really want to go into the word to submerge or immerse. So as we walk through the Red Sea, we essentially were joined unto Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua through a covenant set up by the Most High, but the Lord used Moses. All right, the Lord used Moses. So let's go back to that. That's what it means we were baptized unto Moses. Let's go back to this. 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and 3. And did all eat the same spiritual meat, and did drink all the same spiritual drink. Right? So the meat that we ate and the drink that we ate is about to be explained. For they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Hamashiach Yahushua. Right? Because the Lord was with us in the wilderness. Right? Yahushua was there in the wilderness with our forefathers. But with many of them, the Most High was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now, these things were our examples, to the intent we should not lust after evil things as they also lusted. So we're going into don't be like these men, right? The men that we're speaking about are the men that rebelled against Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua in the wilderness. And we're going to go through these men. Now, these things were our examples. So everybody that died in the wilderness, believe it or not, it was set up as an example. They were literally brought out just to die so that you may learn what not to do in this life right now. And that's how the Most High gets down, man. Right? The Lord said in Romans, let's get the classic. Romans chapter 15 and 4. Whatsoever things were written aforetime. Anything that happened in the scriptures is for our learning. Romans 15 and 4, for whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope. Right? So the only way that you are going to learn how to serve Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua is by seeing what other people did, right? Our forefathers, like Elijah, like Enoch, Noah, David, Hezekiah, and you learn the traits that these men had: the wisdom, the diligence, the zeal, the faith, and you look at their works and you mold your life and pattern your life after the righteous works of those men. You learn what things they did well that pleased the Most High. And as you read, you say, I have to do that. I have to do this. I have to apply this. This truth is practical. You got to live this thing. And the Lord said in 1 Corinthians, like in 1 Samuel, by him, actions are weighed, man. 1 Samuel 2 and 3. Talk no more exceeding proudly. Let not arrogancy come out of your mouth. For the Lord is a God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed. So this truth is practical. Practical knowledge. What does the word practical mean? Things that you can practice and implement on a day-to-day basis. Let's pull up the word practical. Right? Practical. Let's see. Sensible. Here's the definition you want. Let's see. Sensible and realistic in their approach to a situation or a problem. All right. So something that's real, right? Something that you can see, something that you can hear, something that you may observe, and you take it and you practice it in your day-to-day life. All right. So that's what this means. The Lord is a God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed. The Lord want to see your practices and his truth. What actions are you doing? Right? Because there's a difference between knowledge and the application of knowledge. A lot of people know a lot of stuff, man. Right? Just because you know something it's not going to justify you in the day of judgment. Right? Your works are going to justify you, not how much you know. Right? Because you can know how to serve the Most High and not do it. The Lord said there is one that teacheth many, and he is unprofitable to himself. Let me get that real quick in Ecclesiasticus. Right? Chapter 37. Right? Let's go to Ecclesiasticus chapter 37 and 19. There is one that is wise and teacheth many, and yet is unprofitable to himself. So you have people that are wise and they can teach. They can break things down. They can go in depth, but they're not doing it themselves. They're unprofitable to themselves. So whatever they're telling you, they're not doing it. You know? So you got to live this truth, man. Right? Let's go to Colossians. You have to live this thing, and you live it based off of what's written. All right, this Colossians chapter 3:3. For ye are dead, and your life is hid with Hamashiach in the Most High. When Hamashiach, who is our life, shall appear, then shall ye also appear with him in glory. So this truth, and we know Yahushua is the truth, this is our life. So we have to live Hamashiach Yahushua. Whatever the Lord did, we live it. We practice it. Whatever our forefathers did, you read about wicked men in the Bible. That's what we do, lessons like this, man. There's wicked men, Menelaus, Jason, you understand, Cain. And I'm speaking strictly about men that were born of our seed, of our fathers. You have wicked Israelites. You have Jambres, right? You read about in 2 Timothy, the 3rd chapter. Kor, Dathan, Abiram, Nabal, Absalom. Right? You have a lot of wicked men in the Bible. You know? So you have to look and say, hold on, I see what this man did. The Most High killed this man, overthrew him for this, judged him for this. I will not do that. That's wisdom, right? So let's go back to this in 1 Corinthians, right? Let's go back to 1 Corinthians chapter 10:1. And that's the spirit of the Feast of Unleavened Bread is removing that leaven out of your system, right? And the Feast of Unleavened Bread was established while we were in captivity, right, during the time of Moses. So we're in that same spirit, man, of removing leaven. And there is leaven that was in the house of the Lord. Now, remember, the house of the Lord is the nation, right, on a spiritual level. Now, your body is a house, but also, let's go to Hebrews chapter 3, right? Hebrews chapter 3:1. But also the house is us as a nation. And you have wicked men, which represented leaven within the house of Israel. And that's something you see all throughout the Bible, the house of Israel. Bayat Yasha'ala, right? House of David, house of Israel, right? And the leaven will represent the iniquity and the sin within the nation. And you have wicked men that we are learning about, that we may know what not to be like, right? Or who not to be like. Hebrews 3:1. Wherefore, holy brethren, partakers of the heavenly calling, consider the apostle and high priest of our profession, Hamashiach Yahushua. Yahushua is an apostle. He was sent out from the heavens to the earth, and he ministered from Galilee all the way to Jerusalem. A high priest after the order of Melchizedek, who was faithful to him that appointed him. Who appointed him? Yahweh, the Most High. As also Moses was faithful in all his house. See that? For this man, meaning Yahushua, was counted worthy of more glory than Moses. And as much as he who builded the house hath more honor than the house. You see that? Let me read that again. And as much as he who hath builded the house, who builded the house? The Lord, man. Right? Hath more honor than the house. For every house is builded by some man, but he that built all things is the Most High. And Moses verily was faithful in all his house as a servant for a testimony of those things which were to be spoken after. Moses was faithful, man. He was meek. He led Israel through the wilderness, right? He was obedient. He served the Most High, right? So Moses was faithful. It's like in all his house, right? Meaning in the nation, all right? In the nation of Israel, Moses was faithful. Even in Numbers, the 12th chapter says Moses was the meekest man in all the earth, in Numbers 12:3. And when you jump to 6 on down, it says Moses is not so, With him will I even speak face to face, even apparently, and not in dark speeches. So Moses was on a high level in the nation, in the house. David in his time, he was faithful in his house. Noah, he was faithful in his house. Elijah, he was faithful in his house. Hezekiah, Josiah, Onias, these are righteous men. Judas, Jeremiah, Isaiah, they were faithful in their house. And it's not talking about a house with four walls, a window, and a back door. Let me read this again. And Moses verily was faithful in all his house as a servant, for a testimony of those things which were to be spoken after. But Hamashiach as a son over his own house. So what's more, what gets the better prestige? A servant in the house or a son in your own house? Well, last time I checked, a son in his own house has more authority and prestige and honor and glory than a servant in somebody in the son's house. So what the apostle Paul is doing, and there's debate who wrote Hebrews, right? But what the author is saying, the author is letting you know that Hamashiach Yahushai, he's over Moses. All right, that's all he's saying. Because Moses is a servant in Hamashiach Yahushai's house. Because Moses worked for Yahushua. Because Yahushua was with Moses in the wilderness. You know? So let's read this again. But Hamashiach as a son over his own house, whose house are we? If we hold fast the confidence and the rejoicing of the hope firm unto the end. So what house are we really dealing with during the Feast of Unleavened Bread? If you have your actual house and you're diligent to remove leaven, you're looking up ingredients and there's chemical names and formulas and chemical compounds that you get acquainted with, and bicarbonate this and this, that, and the third, and leaven and yeast. And there's all types of things that you are, or you should be, extremely zealous to remove out of your house. You're commanded to do so. Right? Let's get that in Exodus 12 chapter. All right, let's go to Exodus chapter 12 and deal with it. This is Exodus chapter 12, and I'll start at verse 14, right? Because it is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and ye shall keep it a feast to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, throughout your generations. Ye shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever, right? 7 days. So the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread started April 3rd at sundown. That was Monday night. All right. Now it's so-called Thursday. So 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread, and you do have to eat unleavened bread 7 days. Is that the only thing you have to eat? No, but you are commanded to eat unleavened bread on every one of those days. Rather eat it in dinner, breakfast, lunch, whatever, you know? So 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. And we're going to break this down spiritually as well, because the unleavened bread represents the spirit or the body without sin, right? The spirit without iniquity, the spirit without malice and guile and deceit. And you're doing that for 7 days. Now, 7 is a number that also means completion or perfection, which means what this is teaching us is that forever or eternally, or as long as we are alive, we should be removing leaven from our vessels, from our house, from our spirits. Okay? Now, let's prove that real quick, this unleavened bread. Let's go. I'm going to open up another blue letter. I still want to go back to Hebrews, and I want to go back to 1 Corinthians. We're going to tie it all back in through the spirit and power, Lord willing, of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. Right? Let's get this. Right? 1 Corinthians, the 5th chapter. Right? 1 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 6. Your glorying is not good. Know ye not that a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump? So a little bit of sin, right, causes the whole bread to rise. Purge out therefore the old leaven. So you want to get rid of sin. You want to get rid of lust, pride, the spirit of sedition, the spirit of madness, folly, slothfulness, right? It could be a spirit of guilt and overthinking and giving your mind over to heaviness. So it can be the spirit of vanity and seeking the world and surfeiting. You want to purge that out through prayer, through fasting, right? That ye may be a new lump, as ye are unleavened. For even Hamashiach, our Passover, is sacrificed for us. Therefore, let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. So that's what the unleavened bread, the feast of unleavened bread, is about. It's not just about, okay, I got my honey, my flour, I made my unleavened this, and I made my, it's deeper than that. Yeah, you can make all types of recipes with unleavened bread, but if that's what your mind is all about, then you need a reality check, because this truth is spiritual. That's just surface level. There's a spiritual meaning behind every law, every commandment, and every statute set up by the Most High. Romans 7:14 says, for the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin. So what's the spiritual aspect of this law? Why is it 7 days? Why is it unleavened bread? Again, because what causes bread to rise? What's the leaven? It's yeast. Yeast is the sin, for lack of better terms, the leaven. Remember, the Lord said that in Luke, right? Let's go to Luke. Okay, hold on. We got four blue letters, right? We need that. That's Luke 12. Okay, Luke 12:1. In the meantime, when they were gathered together, an innumerable multitude of people, and so much that they trode one upon another. So they was trampling each other to get to the Lord. He began to say to his disciples, first of all, beware ye of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. Right? So leaven is hypocrisy. Leaven is wickedness. Leaven is malice. Leaven is pride. All of that is leaven. And it causes it to rise and sin to increase. And it causes evil to abound in you. Either the grace of Yahweh B'Shem Shai can abound in you, or sin can abound and increase in you. And all it takes is a little bit of leaven to leaven it the whole lump. We read that in the book of 1 Corinthians. All right, let's go to St. Mark, 8th chapter. That's Mark chapter 8 and verse 14. Now the disciples have forgotten to take bread. Neither had they in the ship with them more than one loaf. And he charged them, saying, take heed, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the leaven of Herod. All right. Leaven and Herod. Which means what? The leaven of the Pharisees was hypocrisy. And the leaven of Herod is just outright evil. Herod was an Edomite. It was just outright sin. So that's what the removing of the leaven is representative of. In your house, right? Now, 7 days is because 7 is completion, right? 7 represents completion. So as long as you're alive forever, you should be removing leaven from your system. That's what this thing is about. It's not just about your unleavened bread that you made, man, your secret recipe. You can have the best unleavened bread recipe carnally, but what is your recipe for removing leaven from you, man? Spiritually. That should be your secret recipe. Look, I fast, I do this, I get counsel, I examine myself daily and I do this, and that's the unleavened bread that I am before Yahweh B'Shem Shai. That's what's truly important. And that's the mentality we want to have as we deal with this feast day, right? Psalms 12:6. The words of Yahweh are pure words, as silver tried in the furnace of earth, purified 7 times. So that's why the feast day is 7 days, because 7 is completion of perfection. This word, this is what this is saying. The word of the Lord is perfect because it's been tried and tried and tried to perfection 7 times, right? Let's get another precept, right? One of my favorite 7 precepts. Joshua chapter 6 and verse 4. Let's see how important that number 7 is in this verse, right? And 7 priests shall bear before the ark 7 trumpets of ram's horns. And the 7th day ye shall compass the city 7 times, and the priest shall blow with the trumpets. So you had 7 priests, 7 trumpets, the 7th day, and they compass the city 7 times. That's perfection, right? If there ever was an example. Revelation chapter 5. Let's get one more. Revelation chapter 5 and verse 6. So we're showing you now why that feast day is 7 days long, based off of the precepts, showing that 7 is a number of perfection or completion. It teaches us to perfectly remove sin from our vessels and to stay in that spirit forever, man. As much as it lieth in us, we should be without leaven. God forbid, after the Feast of Unleavened Bread, you go back to being that old lump and you bring that old leaven back in your house. You know? And I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne and of the 4 beasts, and in the midst of the elders, stood a lamb as it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent forth into all the earth. So John the Revelator saw Yahushua, right? But he saw him as a lamb that was slain. And he literally saw 7 horns and 7 eyes. But it's symbolic. Even though he physically saw that, the 7 horns represents the omnipotency of Yahushua. What does the word omnipotent mean? All powerful. Dominion, rulership, and sovereignty has been given to Yahushua. What does 7 eyes represent? Right? His all-seeing knowledge and understanding. Omniscient, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. That's, and the 7 spirits represent all of the angels that he has charge over. So again, when you go back to Exodus chapter 12, we see that number 7 being used by Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, right? Exodus 12 and 15. 7 days shall ye eat unleavened bread. So the feast day teaches us that we should be perfectly removing leaven out of our houses, out of our bodies, out of our spirits. Even the first day shall ye put away leaven out of your houses. For whosoever eateth leavened bread from the first day unto the 7th day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel. Now, remember, leaven represents sin. You may say, well, what's so bad about eating bread? Well, it's the spiritual meaning behind it. Now, what happens when Yahushua returns and you have that leaven in you and you didn't remove it? You're going to be cut off. So it's foreshadowing the judgment, because it tells you, for the wages of sin is death. But the gift of God is eternal life through Mashiach Yahushua our Lord. That's Romans 6 and 23. So if you're a partaker of leaven, and the word eat is also spirit. Now, this is literal. I'm not saying this isn't literal, but I'm giving you the spiritual aspect behind it. The word eat means to learn, right? To acquire, to put in your mind, right? And people do that. You put leaven in your mind. That's what Yahushua said. Beware of the leaven. Don't spiritually eat it. Of the Pharisees, of Herod. Don't ingest hypocrisy. Don't intake evil. Don't eat leaven. Job 34 and 3. Let's prove the word eat means to acquire or learn, right? Job chapter 34 and verse 3. For the ear trieth words as the mouth tasteth meat. You hear that? Right? Or do you taste that? Your ear is really what? Your mind. And your mind tries words, because a man may come to you with a doctrine and says, Yahushua doesn't exist. And then he gives all of these precepts, and you're trying those words. You're tasting what he says, and nah, that I don't sup with that. That's what people say. I don't sup with that. I don't get it. It doesn't add up to me. I'm trying it, but it doesn't taste right. The same way your mouth tasted meat and say, you need to season that. Because remember, your speech has to be seasoned with salt, right? So if it's not seasoned with salt, you're not going to taste it. Meaning, if somebody doesn't come to you in the words of the Most High through the Spirit, it's not going to register with you, right? Colossians 4:6. Let your speech be always with grace, seasoned with salt. How can you physically season your speech with salt? It's talking about your speech should be in the Spirit, right? That ye may know how ye ought to answer every man. So you're feeding them with your words, and you're seasoning it with the Holy Spirit, and they're tasting it with their mind, right? Let's get another example of that. Let's go to Ecclesiasticus, the 37th chapter. So in Job again, the ear trieth words as the mouth tasteth meat. All right, let's go to the book of Ecclesiasticus. We're going to stay in the same chapter. Actually, I want the 36th chapter. All right, let's go to Ecclesiasticus 36 and verse 19. As the palate, or your palate is your taste bud, tasteth diverse kinds of venison, so doth an heart of understanding false speeches. So you can taste different kinds of venison. You got red deer, right? You got whitetail. You got all types of antelope. You got gazelles. You got all types of venison that you can eat, right? But if you're used to that, you can kind of say, no, this don't taste like that deer. This deer tastes a little bit different. This is red-tailed deer because it has a little bit meatier taste than this kind of deer. The same way that your mouth can perceive different meats, it's the same way your mind can perceive righteous words and false words. So now that we understand that the word eat also on a spiritual level means to perceive and to intake into your mind, what does it mean on spiritually eating leavened bread? It means you're a partaker. You're spiritually ingesting hypocrisy, sin, wickedness, guile, deceit, lust, and you're putting that in your house. If you do that spiritually, you're also going to be cut off just like you were cut off physically. And that word cut off don't mean, okay, you just banished. Spiritually, when Yahweh Shah returns, what does it mean? He's going to cut you off. You're going to be destroyed. You're going to be put to death, right? That's what it's about. You're going to be utterly cast down, and there's going to be weeping and gnashing of teeth. All right, there's going to be weeping, Salaki, bear with me, and gnashing of teeth. So we're charged to remove leaven out of our house. Now, when we go back to Hebrews, the 3rd chapter, right? Do you think Yahweh Shah is going to have leaven in his house? If we are commanded to remove leaven out of our house, and that's part of the law, Yahweh Shah, who is the word and the physical embodiment of this word made flesh, he is going to remove leaven out of his house. And there are certain men that represent leaven in the house of the Lord. Let's read this again, because we are his house. Hebrews chapter 3 and 6. But Hamashiach as a son over his own house. So just like spiritually, we're ruling over our house, and we're removing leaven and sin and wickedness and guile, and Yahweh Shah has a house. Who's his house? Us. When I say us, I'm speaking about the nation. When Yahweh Shah returns, he's going to remove all things that offend. Let's get that in the book of Matthew, if I'm not mistaken, the 13th chapter. Right? He's going to remove all things that offend. Matthew chapter 13 and verse 41. Right? The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend. What are these things? Men. Man is a thing. The Lord says, show the thing formed. Say to him that formed it, why hast thou made me thus? In Romans the 9th chapter. Ecclesiastes 1 and 9, the thing that had been. is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. Ecclesiastes 6 and 10. That which has been is named already, and it is known that it is man. Neither may he contend with him that is mightier than he. Paraphrasing. So the thing is man. Because a wheat can't offend you. A tear can't offend you. They're inanimate objects. They speak not, hear not, see not, taste not, have no knowledge of the law. So what are these things that offend? It's man. In the kingdom or the house of Yahweh Shai. And he's going to remove it, man. Just like you remove leaven out of your house. Yahweh Shai is going to remove leaven out of his house. Let's read it again. St. Matthew 13 and 41. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity, and shall cast them into a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. You see that? So the Lord is going to remove that leaven out of his house. All of the sin, iniquity, and the vessels, Slakia, and the vessels that offend. Right? That's how it works, man. Right? That's how it works through the spirit and power of Yahweh by Shema Mashiach or Malak Yabushai. All right, Salakia. All right, so let's go back to this. Right? Read this one more time. 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread. Even from the first day, you should put away leaven out of your houses. For whosoever eateth leavened bread from the first day until the seventh day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel. Hebrews chapter 3. But Hamashiach as a son over his own house, whose house are we, if we hold fast the confidence and the rejoicing of the hope firm unto the end. So we are the house of the Lord, and we don't want to be the leaven in the house of the Lord. Right? Let's not just examine our house and removing leaven. Let's examine Yahweh Shai's house. And are we that leaven that's going to get removed from the house of the Lord? See that? And so you may be too preoccupied about reading the ingredients and making sure, which you should be. We're not knocking that at all. But what's equally important is, again, examining the leaven in you to see if you're the leaven in the nation. You know? Hebrews 3 and 7. Wherefore, as the Holy Spirit said, today, if ye will hear his voice, harden not your hearts as in the provocation, in the day of temptation in the wilderness. So don't be the men that provoked the Lord to wrath in the wilderness. When your fathers tempted me, proved me, and saw my works 40 years. Wherefore I was grieved with that generation, and said, they do always err in their heart, and they have not known my ways. So I swear in my wrath, they shall not enter into my rest. So there are men that were in the wilderness that we are commanded not to be like. Men that provoked the Lord. Men that tempted the Lord. Men that murmured. Men that caused rebellion, sedition, vanity, idolatry. These are the men that we shouldn't be like. We should not be like the leaven that was of old. And that's what we're going into, man. All right, let's go back to 1 Corinthians chapter 10. So we tying it all back in. All right, let's go back to 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 5. But with many of them, the Most High was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now, these things were our examples, to the intent we should not lust after evil things as they also lusted. And people right now, I mean, God forbid, man, but somebody's lusting after some leaven right now, carnally and spiritually. If you can't contain yourself for 7 days, I mean, what's in with cakes? If you're sneaking cakes, that's evil, man. Hoagies. If you're not paying attention to what's in food and you're just eating any damn thing, that's evil. That shows a lot about your spirit. If you have no discipline and no restraint and no care, that shows how much care you have spiritually. Like we brought up before in the on the Passover lesson, as much effort as you take to remove leaven out of your house physically, it shows how much effort you take to remove it out of your house spiritually. And I tell you what, your house shot's not going to miss. You may miss something in your house, a crumb here, an ingredient there. Your house shot don't miss. You think he's going to miss and have leaven in his house in the day of judgment? You think the angels, which are the reapers, are going to miss the tares that offend, and the men that commit all manner of evil and lust and pride and straight abominations? Right? Do you truly think so? No, the Lord ain't missing, man. He ain't missed 4,000 years ago when he cut down men in due season, when he removed leaven out in the wilderness. Only 2 men made it out from the men that came out of Egypt, Caleb and Joshua. Let me go to the book of Jude, right? Let's go to Jude 1. This is Jude chapter 1 and 5. It reads, I will therefore put you in remembrance, though ye once knew this, how that the Lord, having saved the people out of the land of Egypt, afterward destroyed them that believed not. You see that? Right? So everybody didn't make it. You had 600,000 men on foot besides women and children, cattle and beasts alike. Out of all of those people, only 2 people made it out. Now you add the generation that was 20 years old and under, who was allowed to enter into the promised land, but everybody above that, they died. Because they didn't believe, they murmured, they scoffed, they rebelled, they entertained leaven in their houses. Yahweh Shai, he will not entertain leaven in his house. He will not, he's not going for that. He is not going for leaven in his house. Right? What men were the leaven in the house? Right? First, let's read this. 1 Corinthians 10:5. But with many of them, the Most High was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now these things were our examples, to the intent we should not lust after evil things, as they also lusted. Neither be ye idolaters, as were some of them, as it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. So they lusted after the quails, right? And we're going to go into all of that. They set up idols, the golden calves, and sat down to eat and rose up to play, if you understand. What else did they do? Neither let us commit fornication, as some of them committed, and there fell in one day 320,000. They also was freaking off with the nations. Neither let us tempt Hamashiach, as some of them also tempted and were destroyed of serpents. That's in Numbers, the 21st chapter. Neither murmur ye, as some of them also murmured and were destroyed of the destroyer. Right? Now, all these things happen unto them for ensamples. So this was an example, right? Straight up. All the Most High, you know, as much as you may not want to hear it, man, or as much as you do want to hear it, the Most High created those men just to kill them, just so you can learn how to be righteous. Oh, no, they had a choice. They could have. Hey, guess what, man? The Most High, that happened for you today. That you can read these, like we brought out earlier, and say, whoa, now. This is what happens when you murmur, when you rebel, when you tempt, when you set up idols. Nah, I ain't going to do that. And that's what the apostles reinforcing right here. Now, all these things happen unto them for ensamples. And they were written for our admonition, meaning our warning, upon whom the ends of the world are come. All right. So let's go into these men and this leaven that was in the house of Yahweh Shai, or Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. Right? Let's deal with first the men that lusted after evil things. Right? Let's deal with the men who lusted after evil things. This is Numbers chapter 11 and 1. And when the people complained, it displeased the Lord, and the Lord heard it, and his anger was kindled, and the fire of the Lord burnt among them and consumed them that were in the uttermost parts of the camp. So complaining is part of the leaven. We're showing you how the Lord is removing leaven from his house in the ancient times, and how he's going to remove leaven in his house spiritually. Now, you may say, well, I complain about captivity. This complaining isn't about you complain. It's not talking about you complaining about the captivity you in. Because remember, the Lord said, set a mark upon the men that sigh and cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. In the book of Ezekiel 9:4 and down. So right to complain in righteousness about the so-called white man, about this captivity, about wanting to see the kingdom, and how long will it be until we're restored, until the Lord's name is magnified, and you're praying and throwing curses on the heathen, and you're vexed in the spirit. That there's no sin in that. But what is a sin? What complaining is this talking about? It's talking about when you're not content with what the Lord is giving you in righteousness. That's that complaining. This was what? Oh, the Lord brought us out of Egypt. Oh, we don't have no food. Can the Lord give us water? I bet the Lord can't give us no water. I bet the Lord ain't powerful enough to give us any food. Oh, why did we come out of Egypt? The Lord should have killed us. Who is Moses? Who is Aaron? Who do they think they are? I'm an Israelite too. I should be in charge. If I was in charge, we would be doing this. That's that complaining, a lack of contentment, right? And it displeased the Lord, and he killed them. So you want to check your spirit of complaining, right? Your lack of contentment of what the Lord is giving you, man. You have food and shelter. Oh, why does the Lord give me this house? I bet the Lord can't give me a bigger house. Man, the Lord allowed me to get to and fro safely. I wish it was safer. I got food to eat. It's not enough. Lord, why'd you give me this meal? Why can't I have a better meal? That's that spirit, right? Because the spirit of contentment is something that the Lord commands us to have, man. Right? Hebrews chapter 13 and 5. Let your conversation be without covetousness, and be content with such things as ye have. For he saith, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee, so that we may boldly say, the Lord is my helper, and I will not fear what man shall do unto me. So they had a covetous spirit, always yearned and desired to have more than what the Lord gave them in righteousness. That's the spirit that those men had in the wilderness, man. You know, a covetous spirit, they always wanted more. And the Lord heard it, and it grieved him, man. So again, as the Lord's house, the Lord is going to remove leaven out of his house. We're going to keep saying it. And these are examples of leaven being removed out of the house of the Lord. Remember, Moses was just a servant in the house. All right? Numbers 11 and 2. And the people cried unto Moses, and when Moses prayed unto the Lord, the fire was quenched. And he called the name of the place Taberah, because the fire of the Lord burnt among them. And the mixed multitude that was among them fell a lusting. And the children of Israel also wept again and said, who shall give us flesh to eat? So they started lusting. Lusting goes back to what? Covetousness. Let's go back to Romans 7. That's a heavy spirit, man. Right? That's a heavy spirit. Romans chapter 7 and verse 7. What shall we say then? Is the law sin? God forbid. Nay, I had not known sin but by the law. For I had not known lust, except the law had said, thou shalt not covet. You see that? So you don't know that lust is a sin until you read, thou shalt not covet. All right? That's plain. And again, covet is when you yearn to have things that's not yours. Right? It's chiefly what other people have. And our people always yearn to have what the other nations have, or they're just not content with the blessings that Yahweh Bashem Yahushai is imparting unto them. All right? And you had the mixed multitude that was influenced them. Right? The mixed multitude were the people that came out of Egypt that weren't Israel. And they couldn't hang. So they started lusting, and they put a spirit on Israel, and they started lusting. So when you're dealing with these nations, these are the fruits of your wicked labors, of entertaining and dealing with these heathen. You know? So here's the complaining that they had. We remember the fish, which we did eat in Egypt freely, the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlic. So this is wicked, man. Imagine getting delivered in the chariot. You're put in the wilderness and you said, damn, man, I missed that Big Mac, man. Why do I have to? Damn, man, can the Lord give me a double Whopper? I got a Negro saying that. Damn, man, damn Whopper. Man, I missed that thing. Man, that deep dish, man, them hoagies. Man, if I could go for a hoagie right now. You looking down at America on fire, thinking about your favorite hoagie and stuffed crust pizza, man, and deep dish. Damn, man, goddamn, that was the place, man. Oh, no, Lord, not that one. You're looking down in the chariot, watching the bombs drop. Oh, no, not that one, Lord, no. Damn, for real, Lord, you had to destroy that place. That was the spot, Yahweh Shai. That, man. All right, I guess. Right? That was man, they had the 2 for 2, the 4 for 5, the buy 2, get 3.5 and half. Damn, man. That's wicked, man. And that's what they were doing out of Egypt. They was getting their backs beat, oppressed, raped, robbed, murdered, got delivered out of Egypt, complaining about a damn cucumber and some damn melon, man. Watermelon. That's how you know these Israel, man. Right? Jake, you like your cucumbers and your melons, man. Your little onion powder, right? You put onion powder on every damn thing, and garlic powder. Or see, this is you, Jake. How could this be a so-called white man? Right? Look at this. We remember the fish. What type of people get down with the fried fish, watermelon, the seasoning salts, the onions, the damn sauteed onions, a little bit of garlic, minced garlic, a little bit of cucumber. I have a salad on the side. This ain't no Moabite. Show me the Moabite. The Moabite said we would have remembered the squid and the octopus and the live frog legs and the rats that we got from the stones of the pyramids, man, that we digged out the sand and the sand fleas. Now, these are Negroes, man. Right? The Israelites. Complaining about the fried fish. I can hear it now. Jake. You're always complaining about something, man. You know? You always got something you always got something you got to say. Let me read on before I start getting mad. Right? Numbers 11:5. We remember the fish. Boy, I tell you the truth, man. Jake, it's something else. Right? You're a peculiar people, man, which we did eat in Egypt freely. Look at this, freely. You got some, this is the spirit of let me get this precept in John. Where they said we were never in bondage to any man. Jake, you must have forgot, man. Your mind is bad. Your mind is bad. Right? This John 8:32. and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. This is what Yahushua told the Jews. Listen to this absurd reply. They answer him, we be Abraham's seed, and were never in bondage to any man. How sayest thou, ye should be made free? So, Jake, your concept of freedom and bondage it's mind-boggling, man. You got some nerve to say we were never in bondage to any man. It's just like you said now, we used to eat freely in Egypt. You wasn't eating freely. Let me read on. Numbers 11 and 6. But now our soul is dried away. There is nothing at all beside this manna before our eyes. And that's off, man. Lord, you giving us damn manna. Now, when you go back to, let me go back to 1 Corinthians, the 10th chapter. It's off, man. Right? 1 Corinthians. Don't you know what that means spiritually? What does this mean spiritually? Who's the true bread? And we're going to go to it in John the 6th chapter. Who's the true bread that came down from heaven? Yahushua. So if they were offended at the physical manna and desired another bread, how much more Yahushua? Those are those same spirits that were offended at Yahushua. Because Yahushua is the true bread that came down from heaven. Let's go to the book of 1 Corinthians, chapter 10. Let's read that again. It's like in 1 Corinthians, chapter 10, and Salakia. Bear with me. Okay, 1 Corinthians, chapter 10 and 6. Now these things were our examples to the intent that we should not lust after evil things as they also lusted. So they lusted after things outside of manna. They wanted quails, strange meats, right? Strange meats. Now, when you go to the book of John, let's go to John the 6th chapter, right? And draw the comparison, right? This is John chapter 6 and verse, 28. Then said they unto him, what shall we do that we might work the works of the Most High? Yahushua answered and said unto them, this is the work of the Most High, that ye believe on him whom he hath sent. They said therefore unto him, what sign showest thou then that we may see and believe thee, or what dost thou work? Right. So, the Jews always seek after a sign. That's what Yahushua said, right? A wicked and adulterous generation in Matthew the 12th chapter. So they asked him for a sign just for validation that they can have something to believe in. Here's what else they said. Our fathers did eat manna in the desert, as it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat. Then Yahushua said unto him, verily, verily, I say unto you, Moses gave you not that bread from heaven, but my Father giveth you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is he which cometh down from heaven and giveth life unto the world. So Yahushua was speaking about himself, right? They thought it was actual bread. Yahushua said, I'm the true bread. They were lusting in the wilderness of other foods and other things outside of physical manna. Just like in the time of Yahushua, they didn't want Yahushua. They didn't want the true manna. They said, we have no king but Caesar. They wanted Barabbas over Yahushua. They wanted the love of men over Yahushua. There were men that couldn't even sell all that they had, man, because they had great possessions and riches. There are men that wanted, there's always, Jake, you want other things outside of Yahushua. That's the same spirit of our fathers in the wilderness. When you put your job, woman, money, you understand your own endeavors and your own goals or false doctrines and religions and things before this truth, you're no different than our forefathers in the wilderness who lusted after other things outside of the manna. Because Yahushua is the true manna, the true bread that came from heaven. So if you couldn't get down with the physical manna, you damn sure ain't getting down with the spiritual manna. That's how it works. And that's what Yahushua said. He said, I'm the true bread that's coming down from heaven. Right? Let's read this again. John 6:32. Then Yahushua said unto them, verily, verily, I say unto you, Moses gave you not that bread from heaven, but my Father giveth you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is he which cometh down from heaven and giveth life unto the world. Then said they unto him, Lord, evermore give us this bread. So they said, yeah, damn, that's the true bread, right? Something better than the manna. What it tastes like? Jake is simple. Damn, give us that bread evermore. Is it fried? Is it baked? Is it honey on it? Cinnamon, sugar, nutmeg? Because they thinking actual bread, right? How long was it in the oven? Evermore. I can see Jake now, man, rubbing their mittens, licking their chops. Yahushua's not talking about actual bread. He's about to break it down to you. And Yahushua said unto them, I am the bread of life. He that cometh to me shall never hunger. He that believeth on me shall never thirst. So you'll be satisfied. You'll never desire religion. You'll never desire politics. You'll never desire anything to satisfy your longing soul if you have Yahushua in your life, if you have this truth, if you have this wisdom, if you have the word of the Most High. You'll never thirst and long for anything else if you have this bread. You're content, you're satisfied. Just like if you accepted the physical manna, you wouldn't hunger. The Lord gave you that for your flesh. Now the Lord is giving you this bread for your spirit. The Lord said, blessed are they that hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. That's written. So the men that hunger and thirst for righteousness, accept Yahushua and you'll be filled. The men that hate righteousness, you won't accept the bread that the Lord is giving you. You'll desire other things, man. You'll start voting, and you'll try your hand in the Christian church. You may go to the mosque and see if that fills you up, and you'll always be hungry. You'll go and try to vote for the next president that ridicules you and says, if you don't vote for me, you're not black. You leave that voting booth 4 years later, he's out of office, you're still thirsty. You're still hungry. You go to Christian church, First Baptist Church on MLK Boulevard. You go there 10 years, cough up $30,000 in 3 years, giving it to a pastor who pulls up and all types of expensive cars, man. You go there, you try your hand in church, you leave, 10 years later, you're still hungry, you're still thirsty. You eat this manna, you eat this bread, you don't lust after anything but this truth, you'll be filled. This is what Yahushua is saying. This is through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, man. Now you had men who represent the leaven, like these men that lusted after evil things. Do not be like this. This was the leaven in the house of Yahushua. And the Lord got rid of that leaven. Don't be that leaven during the feast of unleavened bread, man. Right? Accept what Yahushua is giving you. He broke the bread and said, this is my body. Let me get that real quick. Right? This is my body, man. Luke chapter 22 and 19. And he took bread and gave thanks and brake it and gave it unto them, saying, this is my body, which is given for you. This do in remembrance of me. See that? So you're a partaker of the Lord's body, okay, without sin. Let's go back to Numbers, actually John 6 chapter. Let's read this again. John 6 and 35. And Yahushua said unto them, I am the bread of life. He that cometh to me shall never hunger, and he that believeth on me shall never thirst. But I say unto you, that ye also have seen me and believe not. I want to jump down. Okay, to verse 41. Listen to this. The Jews then murmured at him. Uh-oh, that sounds familiar, right? When you go back to 1 Corinthians, the 10th chapter, it says, neither murmur ye. 1 Corinthians chapter 10. Sounds familiar. Numbers 10 and 10. Neither murmur ye, as some of them also murmured, and were destroyed of the destroyer. So men murmured against Yahushua in the wilderness. Right? Why did the Lord bring us out here? Where's our fish at? Right? Why do we have to eat manna? Where's our onion, our garlics, our leeks? So they murmured back then, and they're murmuring now. Oh, this truth is not enough for me. I want to go back into the world. Oh, when is Yahushua going to return? Oh my God, this truth is grievous. I can't eat no leaven. This is tripping. This is crazy. I'm go back to Christianity, man. This ain't really it, man. I can't do nothing anymore. It's too strict. Guess what you're doing if you have that evil, ungodly mentality? You're murmuring all over again. Don't murmur against this truth. Absorb, embrace, and eat this word, man. Stop murmuring against the manna. That's why people are going to die of hunger and die of thirst. You know? Or we're going to show you in Numbers 11 chapter what else is going to happen. The Most High is going to give you what you want and then kill you, man. Right? So neither murmur ye, as some of them also murmured and were destroyed of the destroyer. John 6 and 41. The Jews then murmured at him because he said, I am the bread which came down from heaven. And they said, is not this Yahushua, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? How is it then that he said, I came down from heaven? So they say he's just a regular old Negro. Who the hell does he think he is, man? I know your father and your mother. Y'all from Nazareth. I know your whole family. Who the hell do you think you are? Yahushua therefore answered and said unto them, murmur not among yourselves. I want to go into this Greek word for murmur. That's also leaven. We cover hypocrisy is leaven, malice is leaven, wickedness is leaven, murmuring is also leaven that Yahushua removes from the house. Okay, let's prove this through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. Okay, here's the word leaven. Right? That's the Greek word for it. And it says, oh, look at this. This is to murmur, to mutter, to grumble, to say anything in a low tone, of the cooing of doves. Look at that. The cooing of doves. Right? That's spiritual. Of those who confer secretly together. Of those who discontentedly complain. That's murmuring. Oh, who does Aaron think he is? Who does Moses really think they are? They think that they could lead us through the wilderness? Shit, man. If I was in Moses' seat, I would have been took us to the promised land. I know a shortcut. Why are you going this way? If I was in charge, we wouldn't have had so many commandments. We would have probably had 12. And then you got other people feeding to it. Yeah, 12 sound a lot better than 613. He giving too many commandments. I think some of those are his own commandments. I don't even think God gave him all them commandments. I think that's him doing his own thing. And what was he doing up there so damn long? Anyway, shouldn't he be down here with us? You know, hey, look, you know Jake. Jake can talk, man. And Jake can murmur. Then you feed into it. And you feed the beast. And you feed that ungodly animal that you have now become with words and lies and sedition, rebellion, witchcraft, and sorcery. Right? You become a fatted, wicked calf, man. set up to worship. So that's murmuring right there, right? Of those who discontentedly complain. They're never satisfied. And you had men like Korah, Dathan, Abiram, the men who desired other things outside of the manna. You got people that complain about this truth. You murmur against Yahweh Shai, man. You may murmur against the men that Yahweh Shai set up. You may murmur against the laws, the statutes, and the commandments. You may murmur about the decisions that the Lord is the decisions that the Lord is allowing you to make or having you make, or rather wants you to make. You may complain about the decisions that the Lord wants you to make in this truth, man, according to the law. Right? And you're murmuring. And that's what happened in John, the 6th chapter. So let's go back to this. This was the spirit of leaven in the wilderness, and the Lord destroyed those men. John 6:43. Yahweh Shai therefore answered and said unto them, murmur not among yourselves. No man can come to me except the Father, which hath sent me, draw him, and I will raise him up at the last day. Meaning you can't come unto me except the Father predestines you, for lack of better terms, to come unto me. All right, let's jump down. John chapter 6:48. I am the bread of life. Your fathers did eat manna in the wilderness and are dead. This is the bread which cometh down from heaven, that a man may eat thereof and not die. I am the living bread. So now he's just making it plain. He's making it plain. Right? He's owning it. I am the living bread which came down from heaven. If any man eat of this bread, he shall live forever. And the bread that I will give is my flesh. And I will give for let me read that again, which I will give for the life of the world. All right. So Yahweh Shai said, look, I'll give you my flesh. Eat my flesh. The Jews therefore strove amongst themselves, saying, how can this man give us his flesh to eat? You see that? So they didn't get it. They didn't understand what he wasn't talking about a flay my skin, put in a skillet with some olive oil and some garlic and onions, man. What does it mean, give us his flesh to eat? Remember, spiritually eat means to accept, to learn, to ingest. Ingest this word. Believe in Yahweh Shai. Accept his flesh. Spiritually, man, the sacrifice, the teachings, the doctrines, him dying for you, the words that he's giving you. Eat that. Learn of it. Eat this bread. As the Slaki, for the ear trieth words. We've read it already in Job 34:3. Same thing, for the ear trieth words, as the mouth tasted meat. They couldn't get it. Just like they couldn't get the manna in the first wilderness. They couldn't get it. They just couldn't understand and be content with what the Lord gave them from heaven. And they fell a lusting after other things outside of the manna. Just like now, how can he give us flesh to eat? They're murmuring against the bread. Verse 53, right? Slaki, bear with me 1 second. Okay, Khan Salaki. So reading on in John chapter 6:53. Then Yahweh Shai said unto them, verily, verily, I say unto you, except ye eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, ye have no life in you. Now, Yahweh Shai could explain this to him and say, look, I'm not really talking about my flesh. I'm talking about this, believe in me. He could have broke it down to him, but it's not for everybody. So now he's adding to it. He said, drink my blood, eat my flesh. Now to a carnal man, he was like, this guy's nuts, man. But he's, it's spiritual. Whoso eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood hath eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. So accept the blood of Yahweh Shai, his offering, right, that he gave for us. And his blood is what cleanses us and purifies us from our sins. For my flesh is meat indeed, and my blood is drink indeed. He that eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood dwelleth in me, and I in him. As the living Father hath sent me, and I live by the Father, so he that eateth me, meaning this word, right, even he shall live by me. This is that bread which came down from heaven, not as your fathers did eat manna and are dead. He that eateth of this bread shall live forever. You see that? So let's go back to the book of Numbers, the 11th chapter. So in Numbers 11, it says, but now our soul is dried away. There is nothing at all beside this manna before our eyes. So again, this exact same spirit, they murmured against the bread that came down from heaven. And the manna was of coriander seed, and the color thereof was the color of bdellium. And the people went about and gathered it and ground it in mills and beat it in a mortar and baked it in pans and made cakes of it. And the taste of it was as the taste of fresh oil. See that? So the manna tastes like fresh oil. This word is oil. All right. And when the dew fell upon the camp in the night, the manna fell upon it. Then Moses heard the people weep throughout their families, every man in the door of his tent, and the anger of the Lord was kindled greatly. Moses also was displeased. So they heard them complaining about the manna. I don't want to eat this. I miss my fried fish. And again, if you do that carnally, you're doing that spiritually. I want to jump down. Right, let's see. Okay, Numbers chapter 11 and verse 18. And say thou unto the people, sanctify yourselves again tomorrow, and ye shall eat flesh. So I'm going to give you what you want, because they didn't want to eat the bread. They wanted to eat other meats. Just like Jake, you want to go into other doctrines, other religions. You want to go to politics. You want to love yourself. You want to be your own God. You want to set up money as your God. You want to go to drugs and weed. You want to be in the world. You want to deal with the whore. Just like you lust after other things. The Lord is going to give you over into that, man. Sanctify yourselves against tomorrow, and ye shall eat flesh. For ye have wept in the ears of the Lord, saying, who shall give us flesh to eat? For it was well with us in Egypt. Therefore, the Lord will give you flesh, and ye shall eat. So the Lord is going to give you over to that, man. Whatever you desire outside of this bread, outside of this truth, outside of the unleavened bread, the Lord is going to give you over to it. He's going to give you your heart's desire, man. Ye shall not eat 1 day, nor 2 days, nor 5 days, neither 10 days, nor 20 days, but even a whole month, until it come out of your nostrils, and it be loathsome unto you, because ye have despised the Lord which is among you, and have wept before him, saying, why came we forth out of Egypt? Let's read on. And Moses said, the people among whom I am are 600,000 footmen, and thou hast said, I will give them flesh that they may eat a whole month. So Moses said, well, how are you going to give them flesh to eat? All right, so let's jump down and see what happened. Numbers 11 to 31. And all of this is because of lust, right? Because you lust after other things outside of the truth. You murmur. Jake, you lust. You're not content. You're never satisfied. You're always thinking about what these other nations have going on and their religions and their ways of life. So the Lord is going to give you over to it. He's going to give you to things outside of this bread. All right. If you can't focus on the bread, this is the Feast of Unleavened Bread, man. If you can't focus on a bread without sin, without malice, guile, deceit, the body of Yahweh Shai, the word of the Most High. You want other things, you want leaven, you want strange things outside this truth, and that's what you're thinking about and desiring, the Most High will give you over to it. And that's what he did in the wilderness. He gave them over to the plagues of the quail. He gave them other things outside of the bread, just what they wanted. Well, let me get that in the book of Romans real quick. The Lord give you what you want, man. All you do is thinking about I can't smoke weed. I don't, man. You're trying to look it up, how to justify. You're looking for precepts. The Lord going to give you a precept and make you believe it, that that's a precept that justifies smoking weed, because that's what's on your heart. You're lusting after other things outside of this bread. You're just thinking about another man's wife all the time, and that's all you think about. Oh, I wonder what she's doing. He doesn't deserve her. If I was her man, I'll treat her right. I'll do this. I'll take her out. Maybe I should text her. And you just keep thinking about this man's woman. And the Lord's going to give you over to spirits, man. Right? He's going to give you over to the quails. Romans chapter 1 and verse. Let's get straight to the point. Yep, Romans chapter 1 and 24. Wherefore God also gave them up to uncleanness through the lust of their own hearts, to dishonor their bodies between themselves. So the Most High will give you up to it, man. That's what you're thinking about. That's what you want. I'm going to give you over to it. You can have it. And I'm going to kill you after I give it to you. Who changed the truth of God into a lie and worshiped and served the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this cause the Most High gave them up unto vile affections. For even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. So the Most High will give you up to a vile affection. If all you do is thinking about sodomy, the Most High is going to give you over to that. If all you do is thinking about freaking off, the Lord's going to give you over to freaking off. Weed, your job. All you do is think about your job. You don't read no more. You don't study. The Lord's going to have you give yourself over to your job. And now you're working 50 hours. And you don't even think about the Sabbath anymore. You're just getting this money, right? Getting a bag, how they say, man. You know? So, again, if you're not focusing on the bread of Yahweh Shai, his body, unleavened bread, and you're desiring leaven and other things outside of this bread, the Most High will give you over to it. And let's read that in Numbers 11 chapter. Numbers chapter 11 and 31. And there went forth a wind from the Lord. So here's all of the people that didn't want the manna. The Lord got something for them. And brought quails from the sea and let them fall by the camp, as it were a day's journey on this side, and as it were a day's journey on the other side, round about the camp, and as it were 2 cubits high upon the face of the earth. So that's about 3 feet worth of quails that surrounded the camp of Israel. All right. And the people stood up all that day and all that night and all the next day. So they stayed up damn near 36, anywhere between 36 to 48 hours, gathering quails, freaking off. And they gathered the quails. He that gathered least gathered 10 homers. And they spread them all abroad for themselves round about the camp. So they gathered all of the quails. They spread them out. Say, damn, I'm going to make me some fried quails. I'm going to take his legs and I'm going to do this with it. And damn, man, we got quails. We don't got to eat this manna no more. And Jake, that's how you get, man. You get blinded into these different spirits, man. Once the Most High give you over to it, start going hard for it. And while the flesh was yet between their teeth, ere it was chewed, the wrath of the Lord was kindled against the people, and the Lord smote the people with a very great plague. And so the Lord killed them as soon as they was going to take their bite. And he called the name of that place Kibroth Hata'ava, because there they buried the people that lusted. And the people journeyed from Kibroth Hata'ava unto Hazeroth, and the bold and Hazeroth. So that's what this is talking about in Numbers chapter 10, 1 Corinthians 10 and 10. Neither murmur ye, as some of them also murmured, and were destroyed of the destroyer. And you had men that tempted Yahweh and were destroyed of serpents. Let's go to Numbers chapter 21. Right? Okay, let's go to Numbers chapter 21. And all of this was in the house of the Lord. Right? Let's read that again in Hebrews chapter 3. Right? It says, whose house are we? Hebrews chapter 3. Slakia. And verse 6. But Hamashiach as a son over his own house, whose house are we if we hold fast the confidence and the rejoicing of the hope firm unto the end. So again, we're removing leaven out of our house. We are the house of Yahweh Shai. And if you're moving in the spirit of these men, you are the leaven in Yahweh Shai's house. He's a son in his own house. Right? And do not be like these men in the wilderness. Do not be like this leaven. Do not be like the men who tempted, who scoffed, who murmured. You're going to get removed from the house of the Lord. You're going to be cut off from the nation. This is the Lord's house. No leaven is allowed. Let's see more leaven. Numbers chapter 21 and verse, here you go again, and verse 4. And they journeyed from Mount Hor by the way of the Red Sea to compass the land of Edom, and the soul of the people was much discouraged because of the way. So they started lacking faith, and they had to go through obstacles and trials, and it wasn't easy, and they started getting discouraged and complaining. You got to be courageous in this truth. It ain't going to be easy. The Most High is not going to send you in the way that you want it. It ain't going to be quick. This ain't a shortcut truth, man. Or the truth ain't a shortcut. You can't just have everything go your way. The Most High may bring you in a way that you may not want to go in, man. He brought Job in a way that he didn't want to go in. Joseph had to go in a way that he didn't want to go in. I'm talking spiritually. The hell, and physically, man. Jeremiah didn't go in a way that they all went in ways in a path that the Most High set up for them. But they kept their faith unto the end. This was a physical path, a physical journey. And the way wasn't the way that they wanted to go, man. It was a long, it was weary. And you got to endure this thing. This thing is about endurance. It's about trials. It's about tribulation. It's about rejoicing. Even if the Lord bring you in a way that you may not want to go. Right? And that's for if you got ears to hear, man. You may lose your job. You know, you may your family may despise you. You may develop physical infirmities and health issues that you never thought that you would have. And your children might be sick. You might lose your money, man. Go broke. Right? You might have spirits on you that you didn't know you had. Demons cleave to you. And now this truth and the way that the Lord brings you in is grievous to you. Right? Let's go to the book of 1 Peter. Right? 1 Peter chapter 1. Right, let's go to 1 Peter chapter 1. Salakia 1. 1 Peter 2. Salakia. Right? 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 11. See that? Dearly beloved, I beseech you as strangers and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lust, which war against the soul. So we're pilgrims. We're going in a journey, right? In a way that we didn't choose, man. And you know what? When you read the account in the wilderness, the Lord, let me pull up the map. Let's see, map of journey, Salakia, and wilderness. I'll type in Moses. All right, now when you look up a map of our journey in the wilderness, the Lord intentionally made it a long journey. The Lord said he didn't want us to go by the way of the Philistines, lest the people faint when they see war. All right. Now you see they went from Ramesses to Succoth, right here. And then they crossed the Red Sea, right? This is a decent map. It's not the best map, but you see the journey they took. The Lord had them going away the long way, full of damn starvation and thirst, and all types of things, man. Stress, tribulation, anxiety. It's not easy. The Lord could have took them from Goshen and they could have traveled right up here, right to Jerusalem. The Lord could have had them do that. Easy trip. Joseph took that trip. I mean, it's like Jacob and the 70 souls. They took that trip. Nobody fainted and died, by the way, when Jacob and the 70 souls went there, man. It's not always going to be the way the Lord wants you to go. From this captivity to the homeland, it's like this journey in the wilderness, man, full of trials, tribulations, leaven, rebellion, sin, evil, pride, lust. And you may have to compass the way of Edom, man. You got to deal with these nations. And we have to deal with the Midianites. We have to deal with the Edomites, right? We have to deal with the Amalekites. We have to deal with all these nations, man. The Canaanites, Og, Bashan, Sihon, and all these heathen, man. So again, our journey as strangers and our journeys as pilgrims, it's not going to be easy. Right? Nobody said the truth is easy, man. But our forefathers, guess what? They was discouraged because of the way. This truth is called the way. Another, in the New Testament, I'm gonna just type it in for sake of time. Another term for the truth is called the way. Right? Pull this up. I just want to type it in for sake of time. Let's go to the New Testament. I believe that's in the book of Acts. Right? Chapter. Let's see if I can get that precept. Okay, this is Acts. It's like I want to make sure this is what I want. Okay, bear with me. I may have to find it. Right? Like I said, I didn't Okay, here it is. This is Acts 22:4. It reads, here's Paul speaking. And I persecuted this way unto the death. What is this way? The way of the apostles. Right? Yahushua said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So what Paul is giving an account of is he's telling them, hey, look, I used to be a murderer. I used to kill the apostles. I used to kill the prophets. I used to send these guys to prison. I persecuted this way. So the truth is called this way. And our forefathers got discouraged because of the way. As pilgrims and as strangers. And they lacked faith, man. Let's see what happened. And the people spake, Numbers 21:5, against the Most High and against Moses. Wherefore have they brought us up out of the land of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no bread, neither is there any water, and our soul loatheth this light bread. So again, they're complaining against the light bread, the manna. So what did the Lord do? And the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and much people of Israel died. So the Lord killed them, huh? Right? Because they tempted Hamashiach in the wilderness. So the Lord got rid of them. Right? The Lord cut them off, man. Complaining about the manna. Tempted the Lord. right? And the Lord sent serpents. Then I'm not going to read the whole account, but then the Lord sent Moses to make a serpent of brass and lift it up. And if any man looked upon a serpent of brass that was bitten, he lived and he was healed. So that's how you know that correlates exactly to John 3:16, right? John 3:14 through 16. And as Moses lifted up the serpent of brass in the wilderness, paraphrasing, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life, man, paraphrasing. So it's the exact same thing. So we covered the murmuring, and that was the leaven that got removed out of the house of Yahushua. The men that tempted Yahushua, they got destroyed of serpents. That's also leaven. We are the house of Yahushua. We're going to keep saying it in the Hebrews, the 3rd chapter. It says, whose house are we? Right? Do not be the leaven in Yahushua's house. Right? Murmuring, tempting the Lord. You have fornication going on, right? We have idolaters. Let's deal with this one. We deal with lust. 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and 7. Neither be ye idolaters, as were some of them, as it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Now, idolatry, we're going to read about it, was the golden calf that was set up. All right? It was the golden calves, or golden calves, rather. But an idol can be anything that you set up in your heart that you put before Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. Key example. If you decide intentionally or unintentionally to work on a Shabbat and you put money before the Lord's Sabbath, you made that money your idol, your God. If you decide to put woman before this truth and you're breaking a Sabbath for your woman, or you're sinning, right, for a woman, like the Lord said, many have sinned and erred for women, paraphrasing 1 Ezra 4:26, right? You can make money, woman, you can put, people do God, I mean, anything, man, for weed. They sell, they rob, they kill. They phone and social media becomes an idol, and you spend all day doing God knows what. All of that is leaven. All of that are idols. All right? Let's go to the book of Exodus, 32nd chapter. All right, let's go to Exodus chapter 32. It's Exodus chapter 32 and verse, let me get straight to the point. I'm going to start from the beginning. Right, this Exodus chapter 32 and verse 1. And when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount. So you got to have patience in this thing, man. Right? The people gathered themselves together unto Aaron and said unto him, up, make you gods, which shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we wot not what is become of him. And people do this every day. This is equivalent to Matthew, the 24th chapter, when you have men that say, my Lord delayeth his coming. That's what they said, Moses delayeth his coming. And they began to rebel, man. They began to rebel. Matthew chapter 24 and verse 48. But if that evil servant shall say in his heart, my Lord delayeth his coming, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants and to eat and drink with the drunken, like they ate and they drunk and they rose up to play. The Lord of that servant shall come in the day when he looketh not for him, and then an hour that he is not aware of. And that's when, in that wilderness, when Moses came abruptly on them, and they start getting put to death, man. And shall cut him asunder and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There should be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So they said that Moses delayed his coming. This truth, again, is about patience. A lack of patience is leaven. And Moses is going to come in the Lord's time. Yahushua is going to come in the Lord's time. You can't be impatient and start setting up other gods, man. Going back into the world. lusting after philosophies and politics and going back to the church and religion and going back to who you used to be. You know, maybe you was an up and coming business guy. You might go back to doing your business and make that your God. You might have been, an entrepreneur, or maybe an up and coming athlete. Maybe it was like some D1 athlete, and maybe you're trying to go back to the league and, get back in the gym. And, you stop reading, you stop studying, and you kind of lose interest in this thing because the Lord delayeth is coming, or so you think in your mind. That's what our forefathers did, man. They did the same thing, right, concerning Moses. So their lack of patience compelled them to set up false gods and got them put to death. A lack of faith, murmuring, tempting the Lord, lusting. All of this is leaven in the house of the Lord. And the Lord got rid of all of this leaven. He killed all of these people in his house. And he's going to do the same thing in these days. So again, this Feast of Unleavened Bread is problematic for someone who entertains these demons and eats that leaven and those spirits. Again, the Feast of Unleavened Bread is not about your unleavened bread recipe, man. Okay, I do 2 dashes of cinnamon, and okay, I got 1 teaspoon of honey. No. If that's all you're thinking about, your mind is bad. Your mind is bad, right? And if that's all you're thinking about, well, now you know otherwise, So they started setting up other gods, man. Exodus 32 and verse 2. And Aaron said unto them, break off the golden earrings, which are in the ears of your wives, of your sons, and of your daughters, and bring them unto me. So they came unto Aaron, and they enticed Aaron to sin. And Aaron went off, right? Aaron went off, man. So you can't let people persuade you and these demons get to you, man. These were demons that came to Aaron. And Aaron should have rebuked them and said, have patience in Yahweh Bashmi Yahushua. Right? That's what Aaron should have said as a leader, as a priest, But he got tempted by these spirits and he freaked off with them in the dark night of hell. And guess what, man? We know what happened. If you don't know what happened, read this account. Read this account and see what befell our fathers. All right? So again, let's go back to 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse, Salakia. 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and 11. Now all these things happen unto them for ensamples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. So all of these things represent the leaven that was in the house of the Lord. Right? Let's go back to Hebrews chapter 3. Right? And I want to go also to Amos, the 9th chapter, I believe. All right? Amos 9 and 9. For lo, I will command, and I will sift the house of Israel among all nations, like as corn is sifted in the sieve, yet shall not the least grain fall upon the earth. So the Lord's going to gather us out of all nations. But when you sift something out, you remove things that are undesirable, right? You may see people mining for gold, and they take this sifter and they take it and they put it and they shake it, and all of the dirt, mud, and things fall to the bottom, and the gold kind of remains at the top, right? Like you sift something. So the Lord's going to sift out the house of Israel, and all of the leaven is going to get removed, and all of the elect, his jewels, are going to remain at the top. Like I tell you in the book of Malachi, right? The least grain won't fall upon the earth. So the Lord's going to save even the most feeble or the last Israelite, man. Everybody else that's not of the Lord, they're going to be destroyed. They all are going to be the leaven. You are in, again, as we wind down, you are the house of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. Let's read it one more time. Hebrews 3 and 5. And Moses verily was faithful, Salakia, and all his house, as a servant for a testimony of those things which are to be spoken after. But a Mashiach as a son over his own house, whose house are we, if we hold fast the confidence and the rejoicing of the hope firm unto the end. So it's the Feast of Unleavened Bread. We have been commanded to remove leaven out of our house. Yahweh Shai has his own house, and don't be that leaven in the Lord's house, man. Don't be the murmurer, the man with no faith, right, who gets discouraged. And if you lack these things, if these are spirits that you deal with, here's the perfect opportunity to remove that, man, through prayer, right, through self-examination, through counsel, after the feast week, through fasting. If those are things that you see in you, see how the Lord dealt with it in the time past, man. And that should be an admonition to you that you should remove these things. And as much diligence as you took to remove leaven out of your house, the Lord's going to do that times 7, times 144,000 to get leaven out of his own house. Right? So with that, we're going to close up, giving, of course, all honor and glory to Yahweh. Most High willing you were edified. We'll have to do a Q&A later this week. So any questions, we'll hold on to them, do them, Lord willing, maybe tomorrow, right? With that, Kwam Yashalom. Shalom.